Hi and welcome to the channel. And as many of you know, we have been building brigades from the Army of the Potomac and Army of Northern Virginia for the American Civil War. What follows is a brief account of one of those brigades we have done, which you'll get to see at the end of this video, the Irish Brigade. This brief account is from several sources and is by no means a comprehensive detailed study, but rather, we hope, gives you an overview of the history of the Irish Brigade. Who were the Irish Brigade? The Irish Brigade was an infantry brigade in the Union Army during the American Civil War. It consisted of mainly Irish immigrants and Irish Americans, some of which hadn't yet received their US citizenship papers, but who still wanted to enlist into the Union Army. The brigade was formed in late 1861 and originally consisted of 3 regiments. These were the 63rd, the 69th and the 88th New York Infantry. But they were later joined by the 29th Massachusetts. But being predominantly a Yankee regiment, the 29th never felt at ease being brigaded together with 3 Irish New York regiments, and in November 1862 they were replaced by the 28th Massachusetts, who were mostly Irish immigrants from Boston. Soon after that, the 116th Pennsylvania, with Irishmen from Philadelphia, joined the brigade, bringing the total number of regiments in the brigade to 5. Who led the brigade into battle? There were 5 brigade commanders that led the Irish Brigade during the Civil War, but it is with Thomas Francis Mahar, known as Mahar the Sword, that I believe the Irish Brigade forms its reputation with in 1862. He was born on August 3, 1823, in Waterford, Ireland. In 1848, Mahar was arrested for lecturing anti-British discourse in public and convicted of sedition against the British Crown. He was sentenced to death, but this was reduced to exile, where he was sent to Tasmania. In 1851, Mahar made his escape from Tasmania and arrived in New York City as a bit of a celebrity in May of 1852. On April 29, 1861, following the Confederates firing on Fort Sumter earlier that month, Mahar formed Company K of the 69th New York Volunteer Militia and served as a captain. On July 21, 1861, the Battle of Bull Run, or it is as well known as First Manassas. Company K suffered high casualties, but this could be down to the little time they had to train and prepare, the very colourful zouave uniforms they wore, and many units like Mahar's who were shot at by friendly fire, possibly due to their uniforms which stood out on the battlefield. Following the Union defeat at First Bull Run, Mahar returned to New York and was instrumental in forming the Irish Brigade, where he was commissioned as a Brigadier General. In early 1862, Mahar and the Irish Brigade marched with Major General George B. McClellan into the Peninsula Campaign, ready for battle. The Irish Brigade distinguished itself from the rest of the brigades in the Army of the Potomac by Mahar's insistence on arming the 8 line companies of each New York regiment with the Model 1842 smoothbore musket, a weapon that was largely being phased out during the 1862. Mahar wanted his men to be able to fire buck and bull, which produced a shotgun-like effect in at close range. This was used with deadly effect on the Confederates in the Sunken Road on September 17, 1862 at Antietam, and also in the wheat field on July 2, 1863 at Gettysburg, under the new brigade commander, Colonel Patrick Kelly. Although there were relatively few complaints on record from the enlisted men about the outdated muskets, one veteran of the 88th New York recalled that, "We were sometimes at a disadvantage because of our short range, and I had to pick up a discarded rifle in the field of Antietam to deal with Confederate skirmishers." In 1864, the formation was temporarily broken up, and units then began to receive their rifled muskets. During the Peninsula Campaign, Mahar led the Irish Brigade into battle, but at 7 Pines or Fair Oaks, where they suffered heavy casualties but distinguished themselves as fierce fighters. During the campaign, a Confederate general was heard to remark, "Here comes that damned green flag again." By late morning of September 17, 1862 at the Battle of Antietam, also known as Sharpsburg, the focus of the fighting around the cornfield in the Dunkard Church area shifted to the centre. This was where confusion led to the disjointed use of Second Corps, and instead of supporting renewed assaults on the Confederate left at the West Woods, Mahar found himself leading the original 3 regiments of the Irish Brigade towards the centre of the Confederate line, who were entrenched in an old sunken farm road referred to after the battle as Bloody Lane. The Irish Brigade, equipped with their smoothbore muskets, marched steadily forward with their 3 fluttering green silk banners, distinguished by the gold Irish harps. Mahar's plan was to close in and then blast away with buck and ball at a range at which even a smoothbore could not miss. Their approach took them up a long, slow rise towards a crest in the middle of a farmer's field. As the Irish Brigade crested the ridge around 50 yards to the Confederate lines, they were met with a fierce volley from the Confederate infantry in the sunken lane. Rather than fall back or retreat, the Irish Brigade stood their ground and traded volley after volley at near point-blank range with the Confederate infantry to their front. During this exchange of fire, several men from the brigade would try and dismantle some of the fence rails, and later these men would be awarded the Medal of Honour for their actions during the battle. At the end of the fighting on this part of the line, the Irish Brigade's attack gave supporting troops enough time to flank and break the Confederate position. The brigade marched away with a reported cost of around 60% casualties, and during this action, Mahar was injured, falling from his horse. Accounts from survivors talk about the battle rage that came upon some of the men to a degree that when they were out of bullets, they began to throw rocks at the enemy that were dealing the brigade such punishment. Just a few months later, on December 13th, 1862, Mahar and the Irish Brigade were called into action again at the Battle of Fredericksburg. The flags of the 3 New York regiments had been so badly damaged from previous battles that they had been sent back to New York City for repair. So, before the battle, Mahar visited each regiment within the brigade and individually instructed them to place sprigs of evergreen boxwood in their hats to symbolise their shared Irish heritage. The brigade advanced under heavy fire but staying resolute, shouting in Gaelic, "Fa-a-bala," which translates to "Clear the way." The brigade would close to around 30 yards of the stone wall in Marie's Heights, closer than any other Union unit would get to that day, and again exchanged volley after volley with the Confederates defending the wall. Finally, after receiving heavy casualties, the command to lie down and fire was passed down the line. Due to the staggering number of casualties the brigade had suffered, it was under the cover of darkness that they managed to pull back and save those that would still live. After the Battle of Fredericksburg, the brigade was a shattered shell of its former self, and Thomas Mahar requested to return to New York and recruit the brigade back to strength, but this request was denied. After May 1863, after recovering from a knee injury, Mahar returned to the command of the Irish Brigade, just a few days before the Battle of Chancellorsville. The brigade sustained further casualties during the battle, and afterwards Mahar repeated his request to recruit replacements. This was yet again denied. Feeling frustrated, Mahar resigned his commission in protest and was replaced by Colonel Patrick Kelly. Thomas Mahar returned to New York City, but in December of 1863, the Union Army rescinded his resignation and assigned him to operate in the Western Theatre. After the war, Mahar sought a career in politics and was appointed to Secretary of the Montana Territory. But soon after arriving, he was appointed acting governor of the territory. In 1867, Thomas Francis Mahar was on a steamboat named the G.A. Thompson on the Missouri River, travelling to Fort Benton. On the evening of July 1st, 1867, Thomas Francis Mahar fell overboard and was reportedly drowned in the Missouri River. His body was never recovered, and the circumstances surrounding his death was of him possibly being murdered. We'll never know. But what of the Irish Brigade after Chancellorsville? By now, the Irish Brigade had already established itself its reputation of tenacity and stubbornness. At Gettysburg, yet again, the Irish Brigade distinguished itself, but this time in the wheat field. Under overwhelming Confederate pressure, the shattered brigade had held its ground, buying enough time for the Union Army to bring in reinforcements. But afterwards, the Irish Brigade would never be the same again. And here they are, guys, the Irish Brigade. More on that in a moment. We hope you enjoyed the first part of the video. It's certainly been a fabulous project to, whilst we've been building and painting up the brigade in front of you, to actually do the research alongside them. It's sort of trying to sort of get into the shoes of the men who were there, who fought in these regiments, who fought in the brigade, who led them in some of the battles and that they fought in. There's so much more that we could have talked about at the beginning, but again, I was conscious of the length of video that it was going to become. So I've tried to put together just basically an overview, an arch over the main subject. Hopefully it gives you guys some sort of like inspiration that sort of makes you want to go out and do a bit of research for yourself, or even makes you think to yourself, I quite fancy building up an American Civil War brigade. The Irish Brigade sounds one for me. But like I said, it's a fantastic period, and the subject matter certainly does have a wide appeal in that to the American Civil War buffs and that out there. So in front of you now, we've got 4 regiments out of the 5 that served in the Irish Brigade. In front right then we have the 63rd New York, the 69th New York back right. Front left here we've got the 88th New York, and back left then we have the 28th Massachusetts. The 116th Pennsylvania is going to get done. It will be added to the brigade, but that'll be it, phase 2 of our project build, which will be a little bit later on, because we've got to pause the project at the moment because we're busy doing up a couple of armies for a trip to Warhammer World, which we're doing at the end of the year. And we've also just started putting together a Lion Rampant project. More on those you can be able to see on our Facebook page. So again, if you haven't, like the American Civil War project here, if you haven't signed up to our Facebook page, go on to Facebook, Battle Bunker HQ, like and follow the page. That way you'll get to see a lot more things that go on in the background, as well as us making our videos. Again, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, I know it's a bit of a plug here, but again, hit the subscribe and notification buttons and like the videos. We all appreciate it, and that we do appreciate your support. So like I said, so that 5th regiment will be added in. Now, the history police amongst you would have noticed they're not quite historically accurate. Now, that is done on purpose, and it's not a disrespect to the men who fought in the Irish Brigade at all. It is purely no, I'll actually show you in that. If you noticed on their hats, they've got a green ring around their hats. I wanted a way of representing the evergreen boxwood sprigs. And we tried everything. We cut down small little 2mm tufts. We trying to sort of clump it together, and it just looked a mess, to be quite honest with you. We tried little sprigs of other tree foliage and bits and pieces. Again, it just looked a mess. So you're only ever looking at this from sort of like 3 foot away. If I bring one in, I've got a spare bases, couple of spare bases to my side here. There you go. And you'll see what I mean. You're seeing it up close and that, but 3 foot away, you know, I can't, obviously, you see it on the table 3 foot away. It does look quite nice, and it does look as though it has got some sort of element. And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to just represent the time of Fredericksburg, where the 3 New York regiments, the 63rd, 69th, and obviously the 88th, never had their flags. Only the 28th in the back left there had their flag at Fredericksburg. Well, that's certainly the information I've found, and that's the reason why they put the evergreen boxwood in their hats. So again, it's to symbolise, like I said in the piece, their Irish heritage. Each regiment in the 4 represents a standard regiment for Pickett's Charge. The 7 bases there represents a large regiment in Pickett's Charge, but also represents the footprint is a large regiment in black powder. So again, guys I go and play with, or we game with, a different club or a different venue, don't play Pickett's Charge, but play black powder. It's all covered, so it all works, happy days and that. So really, really cool. Love the way that's all come out. The officer there is the 2011 salute figure, and the Gideon bearer is one that you can buy as a pack of 3 from the Perry. So I'll just turn him around like that, so you've got a good sort of view of those there. And again, just put a few rocks and a few tufts on the base just to give it a bit of flavour and character and that, and sort of break up, and a bit more definition, so it sort of breaks up the base. So that's Thomas Mahar. And there we have it, guys. That is the Irish Brigade. Like I said, lovely brigade to research and to build and paint. And if you like the video, if you like this concept of this video, let us know in the comments below. And again, guys, a huge thank you and that for all your support, all the new subscribers that's jumped on recently. Much appreciated in that, and it does go a long way. Goes to show that you're interested in what we're doing. So it's happy days and that, and we'll continue to do the work and show you guys as well. Huge respect to all of you guys that are putting content out there and making videos and showing us your work on Facebook and here on YouTube. It takes a lot of work, takes a lot of effort, so we do appreciate all of that. So some great projects out there, so keep them coming. And until next time, guys, we hope you all stay safe and happy wargaming.